Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Friends, we are going to continue the Sigalaka Sutta, for there is much that has to be discussed if we are to understand the sutta. So therefore, I will be discussing the sutta today also, maybe another day. So the Buddha said that if one is not influenced by the four evils. Now, what are the four evils? First is desire. Desire is called chanda in Pali. Then ill will, it is dosa in Pali. Fear, bhaya, and ignorance, moha. So Buddha said that if someone is not influenced by these four evils, one will not do any of the four defilements that we have discussed in our last talk. You remember about killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and lying. So those four defilements will not be done by someone who is not influenced by these four evils, that is desire, chanda, ill will, dosa, fear, bhaya, and moha, ignorance, right? Now the Buddha gave a beautiful simile to illustrate it. He said, he who breaks the law, that is the Dhamma, through these four evils, loses all his fair reputation like the moon at waning time. You know the dark moon? And he who never yields to these evils grows in goodness and reputation like the moon at waxing time, like when the full moon is, there. Now, what are the four evils? The first is desire or attachment, called chanda in Pali. It's also translated as intention or interest to act. Now, can you see there are two ideas? One is that there is attachment, there is desire, yes, but there is also an interest to act and intention. So now let us go on and see more about this. According to the Theravada tradition and the Abhidhamma, this mental factor can have positive or negative results depending on the other factors it is joined with. For instance, if it is joined with ignorance and craving, then it could bring negative results, and that is called akusala. But if combined with intelligence and wisdom, then the results will be positive. Now let us say now there is someone who is a meditator, and this meditator is very concentrated, right? So this meditator now wishes or desires to have jhana, at least go to the first jhana. Now that is a good desire. So it is positive, right? Positive desire. But if someone were to get angry and think of, destroying that other person's reputation, or to, do something bad to that person, then that is negative, right? Actually, the Buddha has stressed the important role played by chanda or desire, if someone were to progress in the eightfold path. You see, the eightfold path is the noble eightfold path. And if one wants to practice the noble eightfold path to go forward, then this desire to act is very important. That is what Buddha says. Because one must have virya or effort. You know, there are 4 kinds of efforts. One is, now if you have good wholesome skills in your mind to maintain that those skills, that is the first one. Then there is, if you don't have a good wholesome skills in your mind, to develop them, right? To develop them. On the other hand, if you have some bad qualities in your mind, you know, something not right, then to get rid of them, right? So then the 4th one is to think of how you can improve your mind, like, you know, in this way. So there are, now Buddha says that if you don't have effort, you can't go forward in the Noble Eightfold Path, right? So now let us see how chanda works. Chanda actually wants to do things. Chanda is the desire. This desire, the good desire, wants to do things. While the other side of chanda is tanha. Tanha is lobha or craving or greed, right? Now that is also chanda. Now don't make a mistake. Chanda has 2 sides, like the coin. One side is the good side, the other side is the not so good. So the good side is the where you do things. You can do things with this desire, like meditator trying to get concentrated, trying to get into jhana, and so forth. The bad side is where there is tanha or greed or craving, right? And that side wants to become, want to become means to, to get things, grasp things, or to get rid of things, or else to be separated from something. That is the bad side. Also, tanha or lobha or craving is focused on the result of the action, right? Result. Now, if someone is angry with somebody, until he goes and scolds that person or does something equally bad to that person will not be happy. So the result is what what tanha is concerned about. While chanda focused on the action, you see, action itself, that is the positive side, only the action. Now, in a householder's life, some think of, now, supposing you have a job which you don't like very much, right? Then you think you have to go and do that, whatever the work, because you have to receive a monthly wage. But because of the dislike for the job, that person will be unhappy right through the working life. But if one can focus on one's work mindfully, right? Focus just mindfully, do the work mindfully, as well as you could, without thinking of getting pleasure or joy from it, right? So then that person will just do the work, that's all. And when he goes back home, he will leave the work and all the things about the work at the gate of the office. Will not take all those things home. So then that person will not be unhappy with the work. Now that is the way to do the positive side of chanda or the positive side of desire. Now, some meditators also get frustrated when they cannot, come up to expectations. Now, there are lots of people who come even here who expect to get results. As soon as they start meditating, they think that they could concentrate for hours, they could get into jhana, and so on and so forth. But that is not the way. It is the Buddha himself has said, it is the gradual training. So it's gradually that we have to go, along the path. So now they get frustrated, these people who expect too much, and give up or try other spiritual means. What should be done is to put forth more effort so that there is interest and also intelligence, that is wisdom. That is positive chanda. The other one is negative. Now, that is about desire or chanda. Now, the next one is dosa or ill will, right? Now, it can be hate, also aversion. Now, these such sentiments, such ideas can cause violence even in the home or in the society, or even a war between countries or disputes. When we are having dosa or aversion towards someone, it may erupt in the form of speech. How? Sarcasm, abuse, insult, such things. The cause may be, now there must be always a cause for something, isn't that so? The cause for this dosa or ill will may be attachment or lobha, right? Attachment for something or lobha. Or it could be that that person is afraid about the future. Or that person may be having a disease, some kind of disease. Or it could be an accident. Or also it could be that the person has lost someone, some loved person, right? So what is the antidote? It is wisdom. Now, if we lose someone dear to us, that is something that is quite common, isn't that so? You are not going to be here in this world forever. We are born, we live, and then we die. So when we die, it might cause sadness to someone. Now that sadness is also dosa. It is not something good to be sad about someone who has died. So regret due to past lapses, you have done something bad in the past, and therefore now you think of it as something that you should not have done, and then you feel, some kind of sadness, or you suffer for it. That is also, or you worry about it, that is also dosa. Or you might worry about the future, right? Or it may result in envy or stinginess, attachment or ignorance. And these are all conditions for dosa to arise. When we are not able to manage the unpleasant experiences that we get, we are not always going to get good experiences. Sometimes bad experiences also come our way. Then sometimes if we cannot manage it, then we, in our mind, dosa or ill will can arise. And one reason is because we don't know about karma, that bad action can cause bad karma to us. And also, there is the vipaka, or the consequences that can come with that karma. That person is not aware of it, and therefore, gets into this dosa. So, Envy is another dosa. And the envy is the result of not cultivating mudita or altruistic joy, that is enjoying the happiness of others. We must be able to see other people when they are happy, even if we are not happy, if others are happy, be happy about that. You see that there are people who can be happy, right? So that is also good karma. And if we can see that akusala, or this the wrong way of thinking, or dosa, has adverse effects, that it could have bad effects on us, and therefore we do not understand the reality behind it, then if we really understand these things, we would try to eradicate this dosa from our minds. But because we are ignorant of this, we don't know, therefore we cultivate this dosa, ill will, within our minds. Now let us see the third evil. Now we have discussed two evils. One is chanda, or desire. The second is dosa, or ill will. Now the third one is fear, or bhaya. Now, why is this bhaya or fear caused? Because of clinging to the 5 aggregates. Now you know the 5 aggregates, don't you? That is form, feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness, right? These 5 aggregates we think is ourself, and therefore we cling to this. And because of clinging to these 5 aggregates as self, it is mine, I have to protect this, and because of that kind of attitude, what happens? We create fear in us, fear about losing what we have, maybe our possessions. You see, we need certain things to live, so we are afraid of that. The root of fear is this self, thinking that there is a self here. And also it can be accompanied by suspicion of others. You suspect other people of doing certain things to us, right? Or it could be envy, or even hostility. There are many such defilements that could be caused because of this, our attachment to this self, or the 5 aggregates. Now, fear is an unpleasant mental condition, because it makes one so, sort of different from what you really normally are. That is, you can be anxious, or stricken with terror, or agitation, dread, alarm, and panic, or hysteria. Any of these things can happen to us because of fear. Now, one day there was a woman who came here, quite a nice looking woman, but she said, I'm afraid. I have a lot of fear. So you see, this fear is something that can come to anybody. So we have to be careful, right? So even the richest person in this world is not satisfied with what she or he has. That person wants more, right? So while this kind of mentality can cause dukkha or suffering, it can also cause fear to arise. Why? You are afraid that what you have can be taken away by others, right? So the fear of death may cut off their life before they realize their ambitions. That's another fear. Because of impermanence, right? Because everything is impermanent, isn't that so? We all know that. Because of impermanence, everything that has been formed or conditioned changes all the time. Everything changes. Now see ourselves. We are not what we were 20 years back, 30 years back, or even 10 years back, right? So, therefore, everything changes, and nobody wants to accept this fact. They want everything to be permanent, but that is not the way, you know. In this world, everything changes. When making a decision, if you see that it is done under the evil influence of these four, or any of these four, before performing that action or saying that, you know, whatever speech you want to make, before that, it's good to think again, for it will bring long-term benefit for you and for others by seeing the, you know, a little bit further than what you are, you know, what you see at that moment. There is a sutta called the Bhaya Sutta. The translation of that is fear and dread. That is in the Majjhima Nikaya. And in that Bhaya Sutta, the Buddha says that fear and dread arises when someone's bodily, mental and verbal conduct is impure. Now see, the Buddha says that because Buddha was in the habit of going and staying in the forest for months sometimes, for weeks, months, days. Buddha used to go and stay. And someone asked the Buddha whether he was not afraid. So the Buddha said, someone who has no, you know, impurity with regard to the body, the mind and speech need not be afraid. There is nothing to be afraid of wherever you are. So that is why the Buddha says that it is this impurity of bodily, mental and verbal action that can cause fear in somebody. There is a verse in the Dhammapada, that is number 216 in the Dhammapada, which says like this: Tanhaya jayati soko, tanhaya jayati bhayang, tanhaya vippamuttassa, natti soko kuto bhayang. Now what does that mean? It means from craving springs grief. Now grief means, you know, feeling sorry, suffering, sad, grief. You know, grief can come or grief can happen because of craving. Also, fear can come because of craving. So both these things can come or happen because of craving. For one who is completely free from craving, there is no grief and there is no fear either. That is the meaning of that verse. Now let us see how we can overcome fear. Now, the first one is with mindfulness. One tries to be in the present moment without going to the past and to the future. Because very often we worry about what has happened in the past or what we are going to do in the future. Instead of that, if we stay in the present moment, then with mindfulness, then we don't have to be afraid. Then the second one is to be content with what one has. Very often, most people are not content with what they have, right? So that is one of the reasons why there is fear and craving and all these other defilements. Then now when I say that to be content with what one has, that doesn't mean that you should not strive to better your prospects in your workplace or wherever, whatever you are doing. You must try to earn and do things while you are young. That is the way. So the third one is to develop or cultivate wisdom so that one is able to understand reality. You know, now when we look at things, we never see the real thing. We see something that has been in our mind. We have projected that into the object that we see. So that is why we get angry with other people. We are happy with certain people. All these things are because we project our own idea to the object that we see. It can be a person, it can be an object. So whatever it is, therefore, we have to understand the reality of that moment. And that is what the third one. Now the fourth one is by realizing the three characteristics of existence. Now what are the three characteristics of existence? Anicca, that is impermanence, that everything is impermanent. Dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. Because everything is impermanent, there is this unsatisfactoriness. Then, if these two things are there, then how can we say that these things belong to us? Nothing belongs to us. We are going to, when we die, we are going to leave everything and go, right? So we cannot take all these things. So therefore, these three characteristics, anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. These three characteristics, if we can realize these, that is another way of, overcoming fear. Then the fifth one is to meditate on death. Now, why? Because death is something that everybody fears, right? And if we meditate on death, meditate on old age and sickness, we will get rid of that fear, right? Because we know, we every day we think, who knows whether I will die? There were two monks who came to the Buddha, and the Buddha asked them, what do you think about this meditation and your own idea about it? Then one monk said, I think that I hope that I will exist, that this body and mind will exist till I have what do you call the whatever you are going to eat, till I have it in my mouth, right? The other one said, I hope that I will exist till I take this breath and, till I take the next breath. So now the Buddha praised that person who said that, because that is the way it is. We don't know, once we have taken the in-breath, whether we will live till we take the out-breath or let out the breath. We don't know. So therefore, that is to dispel the fear of death, to meditate on death. Then the sixth one is the Buddha taught the Digha Sutta to dispel the fears of the monks who lived in the forest. Now there were at that time, even today there are so many monks who live in forests. And they, of course, they have fears, they can be eaten up by wild animals, right? Or by serpents, they could be bitten and then, they can die. So therefore, there is that kind of thing that can happen to them. So the Buddha gave them this Digha Sutta. Now, like the Karaniya Metta Sutta, you have heard of that? Like that, this Digha Sutta is about the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, about the powers of the Buddha, the powers of the Dhamma, and the powers of the Sangha. Because, you see, the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, they, now especially the Buddha and the Sangha, have eradicated all defilements. Therefore, that is why the Buddha gave this sutta. Then the seventh one is to practice the meditation on metta or loving kindness. And the last one is one who keeps the precepts, the 5 precepts, will have no fear either in this world or the next. So that is why I always say it is good to keep the 5 precepts. Okay, now the 4th evil is moha or ignorance. Now, you know, this is the primary root of all evil and suffering. For it puts a veil or cover on a person's consciousness so that one is not able to see reality. Life is seen as permanent, happy, solid, and good, so that its impermanence, suffering, impurity, and lack of I and mind are not seen. See, that nothing can belong to us. Those things are not seen. This is wrong view. Now, you know, the first factor in the Noble Eightfold Path is right view. Now, this is the opposite, right? Wrong view. So, therefore, such people do not want even to listen to any discussion on the Four Noble Truths or the Eightfold Path. And also, this ignorance is the first factor in the dependent origination, paticca samuppada. Why is that? Because ignorance is something that helps to improve or develop our defilements. So, ignorance, but we have to remember that ignorance is not the first cause. There are other things, conditions that arise, and ignorance is due to those conditions. What are they? They are the asavas or the taints. They are the underlying tendencies, right? There are 4. Kamasava, that is sensual desire. Bhavasava, the wanting to exist. Kamasava, bhavasava, then avijjasava, ignorance, and ditthasava, that is to have views, addiction to views, right? Those are the 4. So those are the ones that create ignorance in us. Now there are 2 types of people who are fettered by ignorance. Now what are these? Who are these people? The first person is one who is deeply fettered, like by iron chains of ignorance. Now, such people are not aware of things like dying, that they will also die one day. And whatever wealth they have earned is not going to last forever. They don't realize these things. They also believe in a personal, permanent self or soul. And now that is the first kind, right? Then the second kind is knows a little bit of Dhamma, right? Knows a little bit of Dhamma, but don't know the higher truths. Their fetters are silky and soft, but very strong, and is not easily broken because they are unaware of being fettered. They regard all the bonds of, bonds that are, those fetters as decorations and attractions that add to their quality of life. You see, the thing is, they are born, such people, the second kind of people are born with comfort, born into comfort. Good looks, they have good looks, and they are pleasant and attractive. And also they are not concerned about their fellow beings. Very selfish people. So the Buddha says that ignorance is the forerunner of all unwholesome states, so that shamelessness and fearlessness of wrongdoing can follow. Because such people can do all kinds of wrong things and they may not have any shame to do these things. With wrong view, now wrong view I told you is the opposite of right view, that is in the first one in the Noble Eightfold Path. With wrong view, all the other 8, intention, speech, then livelihood, effort, and all those, mindfulness, concentration, all these 8 are wrong. Now the Buddha continues to show how. Now, remember, the Buddha is now talking to Sigalaka. And the Buddha now shows how one could waste one's wealth by means of adhering to these 4 evils. The first one is by addiction to strong drink and drugs. This could lead not only to a waste of money, but also to increase quarreling within the home as well as outside. Also getting sick and losing one's good name, even sometimes indecently exposing oneself, because there is a weakening of one's power of reasoning. Now that is the first way of losing your or wasting your wealth or whatever. The second is because one is fond of haunting the streets at unfitting times. Now I must tell you, now during the Buddha's time, the streets were not lighted. So it was very dark. And that is why Buddha says it is not correct to haunt the streets at that time. But even today, if you walk alone like that, you could be, caught for things that you have never done, crimes that you have never done, or sometimes you are unprotected, and even your family, if you are married, may be unprotected, you see, if you go like that. So, and false reports of you might harm your good reputation. So therefore, that is the second way of wasting one's wealth. The third one is by frequenting shows, clubs, etc., or gambling dens. One will make friends with drunkards, gamblers, cheats, and tricksters. And therefore, one's life is not safe. You know now how these drug addicts and the drug traffickers, how they end. You know that, isn't that so? So idleness is also a way of escape from work, so that such a person will always be poor. Because being idle, that person does not want to, put forth effort to work. Now the Buddha, after that, explained how to judge good and bad friends. The first one is, there are false friends who take whatever is possible, but never gives anything in return. Now that's a false friend. Then the second one is the one who is a great talker. That is, now if you want something, done, or you want some money, you see, for some reason, you ask that friend, and that friend will talk about the favors that he has done in the past, or in the future, what he is planning to do, what he would, do in the future. But pleads that at that point, in the present moment, there is an inability to do anything because of some problem that he also has. That is the second kind of false friend. Then the third false friend is the flatterer, that will encourage misdeeds and praises you to your face, but talks ill of you behind your back. That is the third kind of friend. Then the fourth kind of friend, the false friend, is the fellow spendthrift. That is the one who is a drinking companion, a fellow gambler, or a nightly street walker. These are really foes, not any enemies, in disguise as friends. The wise person would not associate with them. Then the Buddha explains there are loyal friends. True friends, they are called Kalyana Mitta in Pali. Now, who is the first one? That is the helpful friend who will look after you as well as your possessions if you are sick or away on a long journey, or if afraid for some reason. Say you are afraid because there is some kind of threat for your life. You see, so that such a friend is, if you need any money, such a friend will give even more than what you need. See, that is the first kind of good friend. Then the second one is the friend who is the same in both happiness, that is called sukha, happiness, or dukkha, that is sadness. That such a friend is called sukha dukkha mitta, the one who is, the same in happiness as well as sadness. He will tell you his secrets and keep your secrets, not make them public, and will not let you down in misfortune, and also help you to overcome that misfortune. That is the second kind of Kalyana Mitta. Now the third Kalyana Mitta is the one who will point out your mistakes. You don't want to hear of your mistakes from everybody. But if it is a Kalyana Mitta who has been so faithful to you, you can take that, a comment or criticism from such a friend. So he will show you if there is something wrong with you, and if you are doing something wrong, mistake, he will show you. And also support you in doing good, and even help you in the spiritual path. That is the third kind of good friend. Now the fourth kind of good friend is the sympathetic friend, who will never desert you in times of need, will always rejoice in your good fortune, will not allow others to speak ill of you, and encourage them to speak good of you. A wise person should be able to recognize the noble friend and keep the other at arm's length. So the Buddha did not stop at describing friends. He showed Sigalaka how one's earnings should be used. That is, the wise person, Buddha said, gathers his wealth like the bee that gathers honey without hurting the flower. And such a person's wealth will grow like the ants hill daily, higher and higher. And the wealth that is gained in this way should be used for not only himself, but also for others. The Buddha advised Sigalaka to divide his earnings into 4. That is, the first part to enjoy with his family. The next 2 parts to invest in your business or work or whatever. And the last one part, 1/4 of it, to save, to reserve it, to keep it as a reserve for some needy time, when you need it later on for maybe sickness or to invest in something or whatever, right? So now, now we have come to the end of this sutta, the part that I am doing today. Now friends, you can see how the Buddha cares for the well-being of the lay people. We always say that Buddha has only advised the monastics. No, Buddha has advised the lay people too. So the last section, which really is the main part of this sutta, will be dealt with next time. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please ask. No questions? Then we'll do a little meditation. Yeah? Anybody? Any questions?
Aya, you hear me, Aya?
Yes, I can hear you.
It was a couple of weeks ago, but maybe today is also relevant question I have.
Yes, please ask.
What does a Buddha say about lay people wanting to dance to enjoy?
Say it again, I didn't hear it properly.
Is it okay in for a Buddhist lay person to dance and enjoy music?
Why not? People should not dance or should not listen to music. In fact, I don't know whether I'm just talking too much, but Buddha himself, one day, it is said that certain Deva, he was a musician. He came and then played the musical instrument and sang. But actually what he sang was about his beloved. So he was explaining and then, describing the beauties of his beloved. But Buddha listened. And in the end, Buddha admired his, way of saying it and how nice it was and all that Buddha said. So you can see that lay people definitely can. And if they want to, yes, there is no restriction for Buddhist lay people not to dance, not to listen to music.
Don't sing. Okay, thank you, Aya.
Good. Any other question? No? Then shall we do a little bit of meditation? Are you all ready? Okay. Then, first of all, I always say, take your posture. Be straight, sit straight, whether you are sitting on a cushion or whether you are sitting on a chair, sit straight so that your lungs are filled with the air, right? Now, today I thought we could talk about or meditate on the elements. You know that there are 4 elements. That is the earth element, the water element, the heat element, and the air element. Now, out of these 4, now I had better explain to you the qualities of these elements. The earth element has hardness as well as softness. The water element has cohesion and sticking together, right? The heat element has warmth as well as cold. The air element has rising and falling and also spreading. Now, these are the qualities of the elements. Now, the earth element, the water element, and the air element can, get together and stay in one place. Whether it is in our bodies or whether it is outside, those 3 elements can stay together. But the heat element comes and goes. You see? So now, when the heat element is in our body, we can be active. But as long as it is, when it is not there, then we become inactive. When we die, that is why this whole thing becomes cold, right? The heat element gets out. So, and also, all the changes that happen on earth are due to the conduct of the heat element. So now these are certain things that I thought that you might interest you. But today we are going to talk about the earth element. That is the earth element in our body. It is impermanent, unsatisfactory, and does not belong to us. So let us look at the earth element that is in our body. So please sit properly and close your eyes. There is an element known as hair, which has the nature of hardness. It is the earth element, right? Hair. Look at your hair and think of it as earth element. Now, there is an element known as nails that has the nature of hardness at the end of the fingers and the toes. You know, the nails. Now look at the nails, not with your eyes really, but with the mind's eye. Look at the nails and in the hands and the toes, the fingers and the toes, and think of it as the earth element. It is hard. Similarly, now on the gums inside the mouth, there is an element called teeth, which is also hard. That is also the earth element. The whole body is covered with a hard element called skin. Now that's also the earth element. In this body, there is the element called muscles, which is also hard. It can be soft too. That's also the earth element. The veins in the body is also hard. That's also the earth element. The bone structure is another hard element in the body. Now, that is the most visible out of all the earth elements that are in our body. That is the hardest one, which is the bone element. Look at it. Now we have looked at the earth element in the body, that is hair, nails, teeth, skin, muscles, veins, and the bones. So there are many more actually that belong to the earth element, but I think this is enough for today. So just see that they are all impermanent. They all bring dukkha because they can fall ill, sick, and cause pain and so on. And it's easy when we think that they don't belong to us. None of these things belong to us. They are not ours. Then it's easy for us. No fear, no craving, and we will be happy. So, thank you.